Hello, it's Sean, and welcome to another episode of A Tale of a Frugal Gamer. This time we're going to talk about stands for aeronefs and spaceships and planes and whatever kind of flying things you might have. These are always kind of an issue for folks. You want the stand to be part of the model, but then storage and transport becomes an issue because they tend to break off pretty easily. And depending on the model, like this one is pretty small. There's not a lot of space to drill into it to put a peg into the actual model. So this stand is from CorSec Engineering, and it comes in actually three parts. You've got the base, and these are hex bases. I believe they're inch and a quarter flight stand. The peg is a piece of rod that has been milled, so you've got thread on each end, and then there's a little O-ring on it so you can tighten it up against that. And then you have the peg that fits on the bottom of the ship, and this has just been super glued on to the ship, and they're nice because I could take it out and then I can put this in a storage tray. It's not big, I don't have to worry about the peg breaking off, and then I can reassemble it whenever I'm ready, and I've got these good to go. You don't need a ton of the pegs the bases and stands. You just need enough for whatever your biggest fleet is, and you buy extra mounts and you have all you need to do all the ships you have. Problem is, these are not inexpensive. This is, I think, the smallest base size they have in the hexes, the shortest peg, and then the mounts are all the same. Well, they have different ones, but this is the least expensive basic one they have. But this is about $2.50 for this flight stand, which is very nice. They have a lot of different options, so you can actually adjust the angle of your ship. They have one that has a magnet on here, and so especially if planes or something, you can have them banking, whatever you want. They have telescopic pegs, so if you want really tall stuff or have a game with adjustable heights, you can buy pegs that are nice and long and can have different heights. They sell different lengths of pegs. They have different sizes of bases and they have squares with lines on them for different games depending on what you're playing. So they're very nice, but they're not inexpensive. And this series of videos is about inexpensive. So I decided to think about how I could do something similar, have a stand that comes apart so I don't have to worry about transport and storage, but spend a little bit less money on it. So I went to my local home improvement shop, and I got some fender washers, and I got some threaded rod, and I got some lock nuts. So these are nylon lock nuts. The fender washers are inch and a quarter, and the threaded rod is 6 by 32, the same as the nuts. I got a 3-foot length of the rod. And I also got this aluminum tube, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So decided to think about what I could do here. So I cut the threaded rod down to about 1-inch lengths, and you can do different lengths if you want different heights ships, but I did a couple of 1 inch and a couple of 1.5 inches. And like I said, you can do whatever works for you. I glued a lock nut to the base and just use super glue. Make sure you get a fender washer that your bolt isn't, or your nut isn't going to slip down inside of, because it might not fit right and be tough to glue. But as you can see, that sits on top of the circle, and then I glued a nut to the bottom of a ship, and that gives me a pretty inexpensive flight stand. So, you know, the fender washer doesn't look great on a table, but I can texture that if I want. It's easy enough to put some putty on that or whatever, and I've got my model based and ready for action. For I think the cost per on these was less than about 30 cents, I believe. So you can't really go wrong there, as opposed to the $2.50 for the CorSec ones. Now I do have to buy a bunch because I bought a 3-foot rod and I bought a pack of 30 fender washers, and the lock nuts come in a pack of 100. But I've got a couple, or probably at least 100 aeronef ships. I've got 200 or 300 spaceships, so it's easy for me to make a lot of bases. You don't need that many. If you're only going to ever have 50 models on the table or 20 models on the table, you only need 20 bases and pegs, and then just buy extra washers to get mounted on the bottom of the ship. Same with CorSec, you don't have to buy all those. You only need as many as you need, but I tend to provide for both sides of some games, either that's convention or just with some buddies. So it's nice to be able to have 50 or 60 bases easy, cheap, and simple to put together. Another thing that I've thought about is this threaded rod. I thought, well, some people aren't going to like the look of that, so what can I do for that? Well, that's back to that aluminum tube that I bought. So I bought this, and again, it's a 3-foot length. I cut it down and slide it over the rod. This one's actually a little short. Let me get a longer. And you just have to pay attention to what you're cutting, the length you're cutting these. So this is a little bit longer there. And again, thread it onto your ship. And now I've got my ship, and it doesn't have that rod anymore because I put that sleeve on there. It's about another 8 or 9 cents for the that sleeve per stand, but not a ton. And if you like that look, then it hides the threaded rod for you. Some people would not care, others would. So that's kind of the idea. And I just want to say these CorSec Engineering bases are very nice. I like the little O-ring that lets them tighten up so that you can set your ship with the right hex facing that you need. And then they have a lot of options that give different variety to the height and different base sizes, so they fit for whatever your needs are. If you only need a handful of stands, these might be cheaper than buying all the supplies to make the big long or the big collection of these other stands, because like I said, I bought 3-foot lengths of the threaded rod and all that other stuff. But if you're gonna have a number of ships and you're not worried about the way they look, these might be a better option for you to make some inexpensive flight stands. Some of the other stuff that I had, this is a pair of wire snips. These have different sizes of threading, so you can feed a piece of threaded rod in here, and once you've got it to the right length that you want, you just squeeze it and it cuts it off, and then you thread it out and you've got a cut piece of threaded rod. If you have heavy models, you can use thicker threaded rod. Just make sure it's easy enough to cut. I have a little hacksaw for cutting that aluminum rod. I don't know what the brand on this is, but I got this for $9 or $10 at the craft store, and it works great for just slicing through that. I have a little metal file to trim these down. Sometimes there'll be a little bit of a rough edge on them, and the tube certainly had some rough edges on it, so you might want to file those down, but it's just simple enough. Just take your file and smooth off those edges. So that's the project for the day, for I don't know, about 30 cents without the rod and about 40 cents with that rod. I've got a stand that works just as good. You can see on this one I marked the 45-degree fire arcs. This is a aeronef for Imperial Skies is what this is going to be used for, and they have fire arcs 45 degrees, and like I said, you can texture the base or paint it if you want. The other thing is, if you want to spend just a little bit more money, I have a number of these bases. They're just Litco bases that I got a while ago. I glued a nut to it, and it still gives me a clear base that way. But I can use it instead of having that fender washer on the table. And these bases are considerably more than the fender washers. I think they're probably, depending on how many you buy. I know if you buy a large volume, they get less expensive. But I think I paid probably around 50 cents for these. And they have them in different sizes. So if you're playing a game that needs a hex base, these are an option. Litco has a variety of bases. And again, just glue that nut straight to it and you've got your ship mounted on there. And it's the same principle, but it's considerably less than what you end up paying for the CorSec. So let me know what you think. If you have got any good ideas for other inexpensive ways to make your flight stands for your models, put it in the comments below, and you can like and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thanks for watching.